5, he said, when Krishna brought the chariot in front of the Kauravas, and when the Lord glanced into the entire army of the opposite side, their lifespan already got reduced. Nevertheless, because of the opposite army people, they because they have seen the Krishna during fighting, so they will get salvation. That what was told in this verse. And in then 36, Bhishma recalled how in the battlefield Arjuna intelligence was made polluted to enable Lord to give a discourse of Bhagavad Gita for the upliftment of the common man. And finally, in 37, we discussed that Bhishma further recalled that how in the battlefield, true Krishna took a vow not to fight, but by breaking that the same vow, he took the chariot wheel and ran towards Bhishma to kill him. And on the way, he rather his dropped his uh, outer garment, something like that.
Yeah, excellent. So, what is the kind of takeaway that we get from all these verses? Anybody else? Anybody else? Rao Prabhu, Subbu, or Rakesh Prabhu?
Basically, Lord Krishna can go to any extent to protect his devotees or to protect the interest of the devotees.
Yeah, and there is a term that is used, right, in conjunction with this. Do you remember that? Many of the people who came here to talk about it have mentioned this term. Bhakta, remember? Bhakta Vatsal. Yeah, yeah. So Vatsal is loving, caring, you know. So that's why the relationship between a mother and child is called as Vatsalya relationship. So he is so protective, so caring, so loving towards the devotees that he gets down to any level to protect them, to care for them. And we will see that one of the verses does talk about it, where Bhishma Pitama talks about it. So today we are going to cover from verse 38 till 43. And 43 is when Shukadev, meaning 42 is where Bhishmadev stops talking. And Shukadev Goswami speaks in verse number 43, how he basically gives up the body and then, attains Krishna. So let's read verse number 38. Any comment, any point to be talked about, any question until whatever we have covered so far? No? Okay. So let's move on. Shita Vishikha Hato Vishirna Damshaha शतज परिप्लुत आततायिनो में प्रसभम विससार मद्वधार्थम स भवतु मे भगवान गतिर्मुकुंदः. Anybody would like to read?
Sure, Prabhuji. Translation. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me, as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Purport. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishmadeva on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting because the activities of Lord Sri Krishna appear to be partial to Arjuna and at enmity with Bhishmadeva. But factually, all this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishmadeva, a great devotee of the Lord. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him because he is Ajita or unconquerable. But still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy or rebukes him rebukes him from a superior position. Although no one can be superior to the Lord, these are some of the transcendental reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. And those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. Bhishmadeva played the part of valiant warrior and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord so that to the common eyes it appeared that the Lord was wounded. But factually, all this was to bewilder the non devotees. The all spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishmadeva would not have desired to have a very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishmadeva been an
Rao Prabhu, my mistake, by mistake, I muted you. Can you unmute yourself?
sure, done,
Sorry.
Prabhuji.
Sushil Prabhu, I request you to remain muted if you don't mind.
No, sound is from my side only, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yeah. The all spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishmadeva would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishmadeva been an enemy of the Lord, Lord Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishmadeva with blood and wounds.
But he did so.
Yeah, sorry, but he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord, decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasa of relations between the Lord and the servitor. By such dealings, both the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving towards Bhishmadeva. But in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded towards Bhishmadeva as a lover goes to a lover, without caring him, without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his determination was to kill Bhishmadeva, but factually it was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. The impersonalist desire salvation from him, and he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here Bhishmadeva aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this.
Jai. So beautifully written, isn't it? The purport. It makes these things so very clear. So I know, meaning when in this purport, one point has been mentioned that there was no need for the Lord to appear in front of Vishmadev. He could have actually killed him even without moving also. And I'm sure you all know how at the beginning, before Dwarka was constructed, Jarasandha had fought with the Lord 17 times, and every time the Lord used to defeat him, and he used to go around, he used to go back and gather more and more people and get them again to fight the Lord, and he again used to bring them, and he again used to fight a war. The Lord again used to kill all of them and then leave Jarasandha alone, and then Jarasandha used to go back and again he used to gather the people. Now this went on for a good amount of time, and every time basically the Lord's aim objective is to ensure that he kills the miscreants and he protects the devotees. So he purposely used to leave Jarasandha alive and let him go, because he used to make a big effort to gather all the people and incite them, develop a kind of anger or hatred towards the Lord, which means that they will be ready to fight the war, which means the Lord will get an opportunity to kill all of them at the same time. He wouldn't need to go to every house of the house of every demon and kill them. All have been accumulated at one single place, a great service being done by Jarasandha, and the Lord gets to kill all of them at one single place itself. So that was also one activity that he was doing. And if you look at it, the astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. In one of the letters written by Prabhupada, one of his disciples asked him, does it mean that Duryodhan was also a devotee of the Lord? And Prabhupada said, yes, he was also a devotee of the Lord in the form of a demon. So we saw this that there are 12 relationships in which one can engage with the Lord, and so many speakers have spoken about it. That there are 5 primary and 7 secondary relationships. One of them is chivalry. Chivalry meaning in the spirit of fighting with the Lord. So these people have some of the other relationship with the Lord, whether primary or secondary, and they want to interact with the Lord. Some people interact in a favorable manner, some people interact with a kind of a negative manner. But the point is, the Lord is transcendental. Transcendental meaning what? Anybody knows what is the meaning of this word transcendental? We have been reading and hearing this word for last so many months.
प्रभु तीनों गुणों से परे.
हाँ, मतलब क्या उसका क्या? What does it mean?
Say we human beings, we are made of those 3 guns only. Lord is not bound by those guns and he is beyond those guns.
हाँ, मतलब what does this mean? और deep में जाओगे? Anybody else would like to attempt? Rakesh Prabhu?
Like the human body is made of earth, air, water, and these sort of things. Lord's body is not made up of this, and his senses basically can be used interchangeably. For instance, he can use ears for, let's say, talking, and nose for eating or whatever it is. So his senses organs are not dependent on anything.
But okay, so but उसका transcendental से मतलब क्या relation है? So basically transcend meaning to go beyond. So transcendental is something which is beyond something else. Now what?
Beyond the modes of nature, and beyond these 3 gunas.
Yes, but these 3 gunas are also part of something, that is the material nature, Prakriti.
Yeah.
So he is above Prakriti, and not just above Prakriti, he is the creator of Prakriti. He says, Aham sarvasya prabho mattas sarvam pravartate. I am the creator of the material and the spiritual worlds. Now, if he is the creator, he cannot be overwhelmed, or he cannot be under or subordinate to his own creation. It doesn't make sense, right? So he was existing at a certain point of time when the Prakriti did not exist. Now when the Prakriti itself did not exist, how can he be under the control of Prakriti? So he has to be outside the Prakriti in order to be able to create Prakriti. So that's why he is transcendental, because he is above Prakriti. He is the creator and owner of Prakriti. And Prakriti is everything which is material nature. That's so 3 gunas also come into this one. Now when he is transcendental, okay, the qualities which are part of this material world, which is duality, like hatred, love, anger, envy, and all of these, they are also part of this material nature. Although they exist, but they exist in a spiritual form in the spiritual world. The perverted form, the negative form of these qualities, they exist in this material world. Now when we say ki, I am dealing with the Lord in a certain relationship, it means that the Lord is transcendental. So if you exhibit the negative aspect of a particular quality, the Lord will not be impacted with it. The Lord will not bother about it. He will still take whatever you are giving it, spiritualize it, and take it into himself. जैसे meaning a small child, when he feeds his mother, okay, so a small child reverse feeding his mother. So the mother, irrespective of however the hand is impure, he might have touched different floors or different objects and all that, hand may be impure, but still the mother doesn't bother, and eats whatever the child is giving to her, because the child is pleased by such a reciprocation. If she were to apply technical rules, they're saying that your hand is meaning impure, you have to go wash it with soap, cleanse it for 20 seconds, and then come to me. Only then we are clean physically and perfectly well, then only I will take it. What will happen? The child will not first of all understand it, and child will give up the desire to feed the mother. Similarly, the Lord takes whatever you can give him, transcendentalizes it, spiritualizes it, and then he takes it. Because whatever the Lord is given to, it automatically becomes spiritual, because the Lord is absolute. So when he is transcendental, any kind of relationship you engage with him becomes spiritual. So Bhishma was a warrior, was a very, very strong warrior. So he wanted to engage with the Lord in this relationship. So Lord fulfilled his wish also. Bhishma could probably be the only devotee who fought with two avatars. One was Parshuram. He defeated Parshuram, who was also an incarnation of Vishnu, and he defeated Krishna also. Defeated meaning at least he made him, come down from the chariot and fight with him. So he could probably be the only devotee. Now, having understood the aspect that meaning that is the reason why Kamsa also received salvation. Sayujya Mukti Kamsa got, right? So it was obvious, meaning how can Kamsa, despite committing so many sinful activities, get salvation? That is because the Lord wants us to interact with him in some or the other manner, and he can spiritualize all our sins. Just the Lord wants our attention. That's all. Our service to him. And that is the reason why everybody who saw Krishna received salvation at the end of their life. So the point Prabhupada highlights here is Bhishma. Jai Govind Prabhu also talked about that story last week, right? Wherein the arrows were given and then they were taken back by Arjun. And then Bhishma took a promise that, okay, Krishna, you can take away the arrows, but still I will fight and I will aim to kill the Pandavas. So that is when, meaning obviously the Lord would not let that happen, but that is when he said that I will fight in this manner, in the same manner that I am the fighter. I will fight. So he fights. And that is when the Lord heightens his protection to Arjun. And in various places it is mentioned that the Lord, when he used to understand that Arjun is not able to fight with, meaning using all his might against Bhishma, the Lord used to maneuver the chariot in different manner to dodge the arrows. So sometimes he used to press the chariot in such a manner that the chariot used to go down an inch or two, because of which the arrow would not hit Arjun. Sometimes he used to make the chariot sway to the left or to the right so much that the dodging of the arrows could happen. And he used to do that, which is actually a duty of a Sarthi, but not everybody would be capable of doing it. And even if they are capable, they may not be able to foresee that so and so arrow is now coming in so and so direction and I need to protect my king. That the Lord was able to do. So there's another point that comes out here. You have heard this name of the Lord, Achyut. Anybody knows what is the meaning of this name? Who knows? Yeah, what does that mean?
He doesn't get down from his status.
Is it so, or something else is the answer? Meaning, infallible is correct, but the meaning of infallible is not perfect, although to a certain extent it is right. Anybody else? What does infallible mean? So he doesn't fall down from his position. Getting down is different and falling down is different.
name. I mean to say that being a charioteer, he is not. He remains as a lord.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. That's right. So, meaning even when he cleaned the feet of each and every guest in the Rajasuya Yajna of Yudhishthir Maharaj, he still is the Lord. Yeah. हमारे घर पे अगर कोई काम करने के लिए आएगा, so when how will we treat him? We will treat him like a servant, like a maid, like a house help. Yeah. If somebody drives us from one place to another on a regular basis, we treat him like a driver. Yeah, but does it mean that when the Lord drove the chariot of Arjun, he became like a normal Sarthi? He performed the duty of a normal Sarthi. He gave respect to Arjun as like a Sarthi gives to the king by getting down first, opening the door for Arjun, and then helping Arjun get down. He did that. Okay, but does this mean that he becomes a normal Sarthi? No, he doesn't. That is because he is Achyut. Irrespective of whatever the Lord does, he still remains the Lord. Irrespective of carrying the chappal, the sleepers of Nanda Maharaj on his head, he still is the Lord. Irrespective of dancing with the gopis like a normal 16-year-old, 14-year-old lover, he still is the Lord. Irrespective of drinking the breast milk of Yashoda Mata and crying when she keeps him down, irrespective of that, he still is the Lord. So that is what the Lord is. Anybody remembers the 15th chapter? There is something specific mentioned about fallible and infallible nature. No?
Sat and Asat.
That is Akshara and Akshara. Let's look at these verses from 16 to 19. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. That is people like us. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. What does this mean? We have a tendency to get attracted to the material nature, and we do get attracted. So we become fallible. But the spiritual world has all living entities are infallible. They will not fall down from their position. We consider ourselves to be the proprietor of the body. We do not want to serve Krishna. But the people in the spiritual world, they understand that they are the servants of Krishna and they will continue to serve Krishna irrespective of where they are and what they are. Now he goes beyond that. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. Now he's talking about Himself. Now he speaks openly, because I am transcendental, both beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. See the authority in which he states about himself. Pick out any Puran, any Devi Devta talking about. Okay, Subbu Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So take any Puran, any Itihas, anything about any other Devi Devta, and find out a single verse which talks about themselves in this level of authority, where they state that I am the greatest, nobody is above me. Nobody will and nobody can, because they knows that they are not the greatest. Yeah, whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat. Look at the authority which he is stating here. That is the difference between fallible and infallible. Akshara and Akshara. Akshara is one who falls down. Akshara is one who does not fall down. And when he is that level, when he is transcendental, he does not fall down, then for him to get into any kind of relationship with anybody and uplift them to the highest spiritual level is always possible. We took an example the other day that if a person is drowning in the middle of a sea, in the middle of an ocean, a person who is already in the ocean will not be able to protect him and help him and come out of the ocean. A person who is above the ocean, let's say for an example, a person is in a helicopter, only then such a person can throw a ladder or a rope and help the person climb up into the helicopter and come out of the ocean. So we want somebody who is transcendental, who will be able to pick us up from this material world and take us back into the spiritual world. Jay. So we can move on to the next verse. Any question around this one? Okay, fine. विजयत रथ कुटुंब आत्ततोत्रे धृतः य रश्मिनि तच्छ्रियेक्षिणे येक्षणीये भगवती रतिरस्तु मे मुमूर्षोर् यमिह निरीक्ष हतागताः स्वरूपम्.
At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be in Shri Krishna, the personality of the Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with the whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendently related by the loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic, that is yogis, tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all their engagements, but thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee can easily attain samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Parthasarthi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Parthasarthi is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the prison house of the Kansa, up to the
Moksha
Mosul
Lila. That is the
Mosul
time.
Leela
That
at
is
the
the
end.
time when it decides to give up the body, give up the lila.
Much. All move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates like the Pandavas and the Bhishma are constant eternal companions. So Bhishma Dev never forget the beautiful feature of the Lord as Parthasarthi, which even Arjun could not see. Arjun was behind the beautiful Parthasarthi, while Bhishma Dev was just in the front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Dev observed this with, with more relish than Arjun. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original spiritual forms like the Lord after their death. Because of the causeless mercy of the Lord, they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls ro- rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya or in the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual forms like the Lord, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord, either in the Vaikunthas or in the Golok planet, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is 10% spiritual, is the Swarup of the living being. And all the living beings who participated in the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attained their Swarup as confirmed by Bhishma Dev. So Lord Shri Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas, he was also merciful to the other parties because all of them attained the same result. Bhishma Dev wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord. Although his position as an associate of the Lord is assumed in all circumstances. The conclusion is that whosoever dies looking on the personality of the Godhead, within or without, attains his Sarup. This is which is the highest perfection of life.
Thank you so much, Bhuji. These purports are a bit long, but they are absolute treat. They're absolute beautiful, actually. So now we've seen this about yogis, right? So one point that Prabhupada writes about this is the actions performed by the yogi are mechanical, and we have taken that example of mother and child and robot also many times, right? So this particular factor, that action performed with love, is actually the distinguishing factor and between a yogi and a bhakta, a devotee. A yogi meaning not a bhakti yogi, but a jnana yogi or a dhyan yogi or a siddha yogi or karma yogi also, right? So all of these four or five, whatever yoga systems we talked about, right? Karma yoga, which includes nishkam and sakam, then jnana yoga or dhyan yoga or ashtanga yoga, whatever it is. These are all performed in a mechanical manner. The factor that is missing from their actions or their intention is the love factor. And that is precisely what the Lord wants us to do. So, whenever you perform an action out of some requirement, it obviously becomes mechanical. The love factor is missing. But whenever you perform some action with love, 100% love, there is no need for the mechanical action. It happens automatically. So when Yashoda Mata used to wake up early at 3 o'clock times and churn the butter for Krishna, it's not that her body was basically grinded to such an extent that she had become completely meaning, she never faced any physical stress while carrying out these activities. Obviously, she must have been tired, and we saw that in Damodar Lila also, right? After running behind Krishna, she was perspiring and tired and all that, right? So the activity, the physical activity used to tire them as well. But that force which continued, which made them continue do the work was love. And that is what Krishna is looking at. Had this been a mechanical one without any love, she would have said, okay, fine, today I don't want to do, or I don't want to wake up early. I was tired last evening more than the normal one. I will not do it today. She had that option, but that was not there because the love aspect is there. And that is the reason why Krishna says in 9.26 and 27 that whatever you do it for me. You do not do it for yourself. Automatically you will start giving up the mechanical aspect, and you will start loving me. And that is what Krishna wants, the voluntary service being performed without any sort of force. So there are people who ask us, if I did have a birth before my current life, why am I not able to remember that? Yeah, I'm sure you must have also faced these similar questions, or this question must have come to your mind also, right? Why can I not remember my previous life? The point is, the Lord wants you to forget what has happened, and the Lord wants you to start as a new chapter. And the Lord, if you are able to remember, there is a very high probability that you might get influenced by the events that happened in your life previously. Let's say, for example, we were a person whose family was, troubled and disturbed by certain people in the village or in the city. Let's say our father was killed in our previous life. Our father was killed. What will naturally happen when we remember this in the current life? We will want to take revenge, and majority of the people will take a revenge. What will happen because of this one? There was some action that was performed by somebody, you reacted to him in this life, and when you kill that person, obviously he will remember, or his son will remember, and then in his next life he will want to kill you or your children, and this cycle will just go on and on and on, will never finish. The Lord does not want that to happen. When the Lord says you love me, and if you realize that, okay, because I did not love the Lord last life, that's why I had to face these problems in my current life. So what will you do? Okay, you will force yourself to do some service or to the Lord or love the Lord. But that is not voluntary love. That is a mechanized, forced form of love, which the Lord does not want. He wants 100% voluntarily performed action. And that is where the love factor comes in picture. And to be able to do that, it is very much important that any and every type of force that acts upon you, because of which you may be forced to love the Lord, that force has to be removed. If that force is removed, only then you will feel without pressure to love the Lord. That is the real test, that in such a situation, do you love the Lord or don't you love the Lord? Now, if many people say that I will learn Bhagavad Gita when I become old, when I do not have anything, but at that time you would do it anyway. The question is, when you are forced to perform material actions, at that time, do you spare some time to learn Bhagavad Gita or not? If you are able to do that, then the real desire to learn Bhagavad Gita stands out. Otherwise, okay, जब मुझे कुछ काम नहीं, I don't have anything else to do, that is when I'm learning Bhagavad Gita, which means my priority is something else, not Bhagavad Gita. Now, just because there is no item in my list named as something else, that is why I am taking up Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is not at all my priority, which is not what the Lord wants. He wants that voluntary love to come out, giving highest priority to this one, and no other item should get higher priority. That is precisely the expectation of the Lord, and this is called Bhakti Yoga. That Bhakti is given the highest priority and no other action. Now, this is what Prabhupada is highlighting, that the mystic yogis perform their actions in a mechanical manner. There, the love factor is absent over there. Whereas a devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. It's completely natural. Why? Because loving the Lord is the primary duty, the first duty. Nothing else takes precedence over that. Now, in case of Bhishmadev, Prabhupada writes, the way you are, the way that's the same way you want to interact with the Lord. So Yashoda Mata and Nanda Maharaj, they interacted with the Lord as a mother or a father. Arjun interacted with him as the friend, and Uddhav or others, they interacted with him as they are Krishna's servant. So Bhishmadev, being a military marshal, a commander, a senapati, he wants to interact with the Lord from the fighting perspective. Now, there was no reason, because Krishna himself had said, I will never take up a weapon in my hand. So there was no scope for Bhishma to invite Krishna for a fight. So he thinks, okay, fine, when I want to see the Lord in the fighting room, this is one particular method. Then I defeat Arjun or give him so much trouble that the Lord will come in between. And beautifully put up the point where Prabhupada says that because because Bhishma was in front and Arjun was behind, Arjun could never see the Parthasarthi route. Only Bhishma could see that. That's such a beautiful point. And one other point very important to understand here is uh, the this kind of description that is given, the whip in the right hand, the bridle rope in the left, and all that. We might see how does it matter. Whip right hand में पकड़ा क्या और left hand में पकड़ा क्या? How does it matter? But it matters for one reason. You can perceive, you can imagine the Lord that way. And this is what the personal worship and the impersonal worship can be distinguished from each other. Very important, because the Lord has a form, the Lord confirms he has the form, and Lord confirms that the best form of worship is worshipping his personal form. He confirms that to Arjun in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now, when the Lord wants us to worship in his personal form, there has to be a mechanism by which we understand how the personal form looks like. And for that, these are the verses which help us. Brahma Samhita talks more about the form of the Lord, how his hair are, how is his forehead, how are his arms, how are his thighs, how is his navel, how is his chest, how is his shoulders. It describes everything. Bhagavatam goes even few steps forward to describe even the minor level details of that. And these are the details which help people draw or paint the image of the Lord. And people, many people, when they want to make sarcastic comments, they talk to us, they say that you have painted this photo of Krishna, कि तुम लोग ने वहां पे Nikon DSLR 900 लेके गए थे क्या to take the photo of Krishna at that time, and based on that make this painting. So they do not understand that the scriptures are so complete, so perfect, that they have even documented the features, the physical, personal features of the Lord in great detail. And this detail is what the artists use to paint the image of the Lord, which is what we are able to see in front of us now. So that's why these small descriptions in the verses, they become important to understand. You can look at it from another perspective. Shukadev Goswami is not seated there in front of Parikshit Maharaj for some kind of entertainment. हाँ यार 7 दिन है इसके इस आदमी के पास, मेरे को भी थोड़ा टाइम पास करना है, चल लेट्स टॉक अबाउट समथिंग विच इज नॉट रेलेवेंट. It's not that 7 days are anyway known to be a very short time. He has to speak about 18,000 verses in 7 days. That translates to almost 2,500 verses per day. Not a simple joke. And then to waste time in speaking about something unnecessary or irrelevant does not come into picture at all. He has to speak something which is of relevance. So if physical features of the Lord, speaking about them was not important, Shukadev Goswami would not have spoken about it. Then we talked about this as the people who saw the Lord, they were able to obtain salvation. So they were able to get liberated from the crutches of this birth and cycle death. Yeah. This is very important to just see the glories of the Lord. The one who just sees him also is able to go back to the original kingdom, Goloka or Vaikuntha, or whichever it is. Now, the similar stuff we should understand that there is no difference between a murti of the Lord and the Lord himself. And this we will know in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Uddhav Gita, Krishna explains to Uddhava the methods of worship, doing deity worship. And within that, he says that there is no difference between me and my murti. So when you are actually seeing the murti of the Lord in any temple, you are actually seeing the Lord himself. the actual Lord. And that is sufficient for us to get mukti also. Of course, we cannot continue performing nonsense activities and see the Lord in parallel and expect us to get mukti. We have to have that level of bhakti also. But the point is, the obtaining mukti is not as difficult as it seems. It has a very simple solution. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu,
Ha, Prabhu.
a sentence in the purport says a spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha or in the Golok. What exactly it means? Well, everybody will be either two-handed or four-handed.
So Prabhu, Vaikuntha में जो है ना, तो it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Four-handed.
400 forms hai, huh? So why? Because there are 5 types of mukti, right? There is a sarupya mukti also. So the way the Lord is, we also resemble the Lord. The Lord has the blue color form, we also get a blue color form. The people in the Vaikuntha have a blue color form. The Lord has 4 hands. The people in Vaikuntha also has four hands. But in the Goloka planet, the Lord does not have 4 hands. He has only 2 hands. That is the form, Sham Sundar Roop.
Yeah.
So the people in Goloka planet also achieve a similar form.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu. So let's look at verse number 40. Please excuse me because these verses are quite complex in terms of pronunciation. ललित गति विलास वल्गुहासं हास प्रणय निरीक्षण कल्पितोरुमानः कृत मनुकृतवत्य उन्मदान्ध प्रकृति मगन किल यस्य गोपद्वद्वः. Who's reading? Mayuri, you want to read?
I can read, Prabhu.
Yes, sir, please.
Jai Sri Prabhu. Translation. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadama, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. But by intense ecstasy in loving service, the damsels of Rajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in inevitable love, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Deva. But the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have a fraternal service of the Lord as a chariot driver. But the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's, Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. And therefore, Bhishmadeva has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sahujya liberation of the impersonalist. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy where the differential conception is completely eradicated for the interest of the lover and the beloved become identical.
Yeah, a very important point here. So we have seen about this point, right? That uh, when uh, when you go to somebody's house and you start appreciating the people there, the parents feel more happy when their child is appreciated. So when you go to a school also, When you appreciate the children, the teacher feel more happy about it. Why? Because they know they are the ones who have taken efforts on the child to raise them. So indirectly, they are also getting appreciated. Similarly, the Lord knows that the devotees have given up absolutely everything in the interest of the Lord. So when the Lord sees that his devotees are appreciated, he feels more happy, because the devotees know nothing other than the Lord, and the Lord says, I know nothing other than my devotees. So obviously, the appreciation of each other gives satisfaction to the other one. And Bhishmadev himself was being appreciated by the Lord by bringing Yudhishthir in front of Bhishmadev, so as Bhishmadev will get glory when he gives more knowledge to Yudhishthir, and when he is also in a position to give up his body in front of uh, the Lord. So today we are reading this chapter only because Bhishmadev has given up his body by seeing the Lord in his last moment. Imagine if Bhishmadev were to bother not at all about the presence of the Lord and were to give up the body at any time he wanted. Would he be glorified more at that time, or would he be glorified at this time when he is giving up the body in front of the Lord by appreciating the Lord? Obviously, we know which one it is. So to ensure that Bhishmadev is glorified, the Lord constructs the scene in such a manner that Yudhishthir gets this doubt. Krishna gives explanation. The Paramatma seated in Yudhishthir's heart does not accept the answer, continues to generate that doubt in Yudhishthir's mind, which gives him an opportunity to remain unsatisfied. That gives an opportunity to Krishna to take him to Bhishmadev, so that Bhishmadev can give an answer and Bhishmadev will get glorified and Yudhishthir's doubt will get cleared. This is the way the Lord ensured that Bhishmadev is glorified. And such a glorious devotee is now not just appreciating Arjun, he is appreciating the gopis also. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said in one of the shlokas that the highest form of love was displayed by the gopis of Vrindavan. And that is why he says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam, he says that it is my opinion that the best of the best devotees are the gopis of Vrindavan. He says that in one of the verses. Now, those gopis, the best of the devotees, are being appreciated by Bhishmadev. Now, one aspect is, yes, that Bhishmadev could understand the Leela of the Lord. He knows who the Lord is. He knows who the gopis are. He knows their loving exchange between both of them, and that's why he's appreciating. The other aspect, again, to reiterate the same point, without Prabhupada's purports, it is impossible to understand Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. And without the details given by Prabhupada, it is impossible to reach even a basic level of understanding. Or in fact, the negative aspect would be that we will misunderstand, we will wrongly understand the verses. But look at it this way, this line that Prabhupada's write. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. A very important point. We don't generally quantify it, we can't understand it, but the mercy of a devotee for another person is actually a catalyst in growing our spiritual life. And that is precisely why a guru has to be there in everyone's life. A guru acts as a catalyst, a guru acts as a guide, a guru is the one who holds our hand and takes us to Krishna. So that is also possible only because the guru displays mercy to us. And pure devotees' mercy is mandatory for us to be able to walk on this path and reach up to Krishna, which is what Bhishma is doing. The pure devotees like Gopi, their mercy is being requested by praying to them, by appreciating them, and indirectly he is appreciating the Lord also and the relationship the gopis had with the Lord. The Lord is satisfied when his pure devotees are glorified. This is another important point that Prabhupada mentions here, that of the 5 different muktis, the Sayujya Mukti, which is what the impersonalists want, that is, they want to merge with the impersonal form of the Lord. So that is not what it is meant, yeah, here. Um, in one of the points, it is mentioned that they became one with the Lord. That oneness is not at a physical level. It is not by giving up the identity that we have that we become one with somebody. That oneness is there at a quality level. And the example given here is the lover and the beloved. Yeah, you would have seen these dialogue in many Hindi movies. जिसम एक है लेकिन जान जिसम दो है लेकिन जान एक है. There is only one Atma, although there are 2 bodies. Yeah? Although it is just at a poetic level, but the point is, what we should understand here is meaning if there are 2 people involved in that relationship, one person strives to satisfy the other, understands that other person very well, and the second person tries to satisfy the other. With that, the intention and the thought process of both of them, the qualities of both of them are same. They may have 2 physical bodies, but the identity of one remains different from the identity of the other. So their intentions, mentality, thoughts, they become identical. The physical identity is not lost. That is that equality which is different from Sayujya Mukti. Sayujya Mukti meaning one tries to give up the identity also. Hare Krishna. We'll go a little bit fast now. We just need to finish 3 more verses. Muni Gana Nrupa Varya Sankule Antah Sadasi Yudhishthira Rajasuya Esham Arhanam Upapeda Ikshanyo Mamadrushi Gochara Esha Aviratma.
At Rajasurya Yag, that is sacrifice, performed by Maharaja Yudhishthir, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of the Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. After gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthir, the emperor of the Lord, emperor of the world, performed the Rajsurya sacrificial ceremony. The emperor in those days, upon his ascents to the throne, would send a challenge horse all over the world to declare his supremacy, and any ruling prince or king was at liberty to accept the challenge and express his tacit willingness either to obey or to disobey the supremacy of the particular emperor. One who has accepted the challenge had to fight with the emperor and establish his own supremacy by victory. The defeated king would have to sacrifice his life, making a place for another king or ruler. So Maharaj Yudhishthir also dispatched such challenging horses all over the world, and every ruling prince and king all over the world accepted Maharaja Yudhishthir's leadership as the emperor of the world. After this, all rulers of the world under the regime of Maharaja Yudhishthir were invited to participate in the great sacrificial ceremony of Rajasurya. Such performances required hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was not an easy job for a petty king. Such a sacrificial ceremony being too expensive and also difficult to perform under present circumstances is now impossible in this age of Kali, nor can anyone secure the required expert priesthood to take charge of the ceremony. So, after being invited, all the kings and great learned sages of the world assembled in the capital of Yudhishthir, the learned society, including the great philosophers, religionists, physicians, scientists, and all uh,
Great sages.
great sages was invited. This is to say that Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas were the topmost leading men in the society, and they were all invited to participate in the assembly. The Vaishyas and Shudras were unimportant elements in the society, and they are not mentioned here. Due to the change of social activities in the modern age, the importance of men has also changed in terms of the occupational position. So, in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was the cynosure of neighboring eyes. Everyone wanted to see Lord, and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. Bhishmadev remembered all this and was glorifying the worshipful Lord. The personality of the Godhead was present before him in his actual formal presence. So to meditate on the Supreme Lord is to meditate on the activities, form, pastimes, name, and fame of the Lord. This is easier than what is imagined as meditation on the impersonal feature of the Supreme. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is clearly stated that uh, that to meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme is very difficult. It is practically no meditation or simply a waste of time because very seldom in the desired and waste of time because very seldom is the desired result obtained. The devotees, however, meditate upon the Lord's factual forms and pastimes, and therefore the Lord is easily approachable by the devotees. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita 12.9. The Lord is non different from his transcendental activities. It is indicated also in the shloka that Lord Shri Krishna, while actually present before human society, especially in connection with the Battle of Kurukshetra, was accepted as the greatest personality of the time, although he might not have been recognized by, as the supreme personality of the Godhead. The propaganda that a very great man is worshipped as God after his death is misleading because a man after his death cannot be made into God, nor can the personality of the Godhead be a human being ever, even when he is personally present. Such ideas are misconceptions. The idea of
Homomorphism.
anthropomorphism cannot be applicable in the case of Lord Krishna.
Right. So it's actually quite elaborate and descriptive in itself. But the points we can look at basically is the Rajasuya Yajna. Yeah? So we all understand that the Rajasuya Yajna was performed by great kings only to ensure that the world over their supremacy is accepted. Now, in order to communicate a supremacy, the accepted method was to send a horse as a challenge and make him run in the kingdom. And if the horse is stopped by somebody in a particular kingdom, then it was assumed that that king would want not to accept the supremacy of this king, and then there used to be a fight. And if the challenging king loses, then the march towards the supremacy would continue. Otherwise, it would stop over there. And if he remains unchallenged, then it would be considered that he is supreme and his Rajasuya Yajna is to proceed. So that was one method. It was also basically that the question can rise that when so many kings who were envious of Yudhishthir were present, why did they allow Rajasuya Yajna to happen? And they should have stopped the horse there itself, and they should have challenged the Yudhishthir and said, no, we don't accept you to be the supreme or the emperor. We want ourselves to be the emperor or whoever it is, but we don't want you to be considered as emperor. But the answer to this one is Yudhishthir Maharaj was known to be a great person in terms of knowledge, and he understood the principles of religion also far better than others. And this was the reason why others considered Yudhishthir to be supreme, because he was great in knowledge, and that's why they let him become emperor supreme emperor because of his knowledge more than others. So Yudhishthir Maharaj also sent his lord horse all over the world, but he did not get any objection from anywhere. One other point Prabhupada writes is about performing such kind of yagyas in today's world. So many factors are there which are not conducive to performing such yagyas. The first factor is it requires a lot of money, it requires a lot of time. You need lot of knowledgeable brahmanas, okay, who are pure in their approach, and will have the knowledge as well to perform this. And the last factor is all the paraphernalia, all the ingredients required for the sacrifice may not be available now. So it makes it difficult to perform these kind of sacrifices. And it is good that we are not able to perform this sacrifice, because if we are able to perform, then our focus will shift from chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it will shift to the performance of such kind of sacrifices. And as we know, in that verse it is mentioned, Kalau nastaiva 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 gatir anyathaya, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. So it's mentioned that chanting of the holy name is the only mechanism by which we can get out of the cycle of birth and death in the Kali Yuga. So the sacrifices are not recommended for Kali Yuga. The only sacrifice that is mentioned is Harinam Sankirtan. We talked about the impersonal feature of the Lord. I'll not go again into it, but this is that Shlok 12.5, Kleshodhika Tarastisam, Avyakta Sapta Chetosam. Says the people who try to obtain the impersonal feature of the Lord, their path is very difficult, troublesome, and they may finally achieve me, but that is not a recommended path. That's what Krishna says. I like this particular point very much. It says that a person is made into a god after death. You practically cannot do it. So the way you cannot convert a man into a god, similarly you cannot convert God into a normal ordinary man also. Both are misconception. Okay. Shall I move on? Any question is there? Any comment? No. Okay. Tamimam ahamajam sharira bhajam hृदि धिष्ठितमात्मा कल्पितानां प्रतिदृशमिव नैक धार्कमेकं समधिगतोऽस्मि विधूत भेदमोहः. Who's reading? Anybody else would like to read?
I can read.
Yeah.
One second, sorry, the page is loading. Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord Sri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna is the one absolute supreme personality of Godhead, but he has expanded himself into his multiplenary portions by his inconceivable energy. The conception of
Sorry, continue.
The conception of duality is due to ignorance of his inconceivable energy. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.11, the Lord says that only the foolish take him to be a mere human being. Such foolish men are not aware of his inconceivable energies. By his inconceivable energy, he is present in everyone's heart, as the sun is present before everyone all over the world. The Paramatma feature of the Lord is an expansion of his plenary portions. He expands himself as Paramatman in everyone's heart and by his inconceivable energy. And he also expands himself as the glowing effulgence of Brahma Jyoti by expansion of his personal glow. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that the Brahmajyoti is his personal glow. Therefore, there is no difference between him and his personal glow Brahmajyoti, or his plenary portions as Paramatma. Less intelligent persons who are not aware of this fact consider Brahmajyoti and Paramatma to be different from Shri Krishna. This misconception of duality is completely removed from the mind of Bhishma Dev, and he is now satisfied that it is Lord Shri Krishna only who is all in everything. This enlightenment is attained by the great Mahatmas or devotees, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.19, that Vasudev is all in everything, and that there is no existence of anything without Vasudev. Vasudeva Lord Shri Krishna is the original Supreme Person, as now confirmed by a Mahajan, and therefore both the neophytes and the pure devotees must strive to follow in his footsteps. That is the way of the devotional line. The worshipable object of Bhishma Dev is Lord Shri Krishna as Parthasarathi, and that of the gopis is the same Krishna in Vrindavan as the most attractive Shamasundar. Sometimes less intelligent scholars make a mistake and think that Krishna of Vrindavan and that of the Battle of Kurukshetra are different personalities. But for Bhishma Dev, this misconception is completely removed. Even the impersonalist's object of destination is Krishna as the impersonal Jyoti, and the yogi's destination of Paramatma is also Krishna. Krishna is both Brahmajyoti and localized Paramatma, but in Brahmajyoti or Paramatma, there is no Krishna or sweet relations with Krishna. In his personal feature, Krishna is both Parthasarathi and Shamsundar of Vrindavan, but in his impersonal feature, he is neither in the Brahmajyoti nor in the Paramatma. Great Mahatmas like Bhishma Dev realize all these different features of Lord Shri Krishna, and therefore they worship Lord Krishna, knowing him as the origin of all features.
Jai. Thank you. So it's a bit technical here, but what we can just understand is the Lord exhibits himself in different forms, and these different forms are there for different purposes. So there are these three characteristics of the Lord, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So the Ananda aspect is missing in the Brahmajyoti and in Paramatma also. That Ananda aspect is only there when in the Bhagwan feature and only when the loving reciprocal relationship is exercised. So that Ananda is only there when the Lord interacts with us and when we interact with the Lord. It cannot happen when we are trying to worship the impersonal feature. There is no interaction, there is no reciprocation, there is no relationship. And that is why the recommended form of worship is towards Bhagwan and not Paramatma and the Brahma Jyoti. So whatever Prabhupada has mentioned here is like a nice, very good technical explanation about the relationship between the Lord, the Paramatma, and the Brahma Jyoti. So we understand that Brahma Jyoti is also a feature of the Lord. It's not the Lord in himself in terms of the completeness. Although worshipping Brahma Jyoti is also like worshipping Krishna himself, but Krishna recommends you worship me directly. And a small example for us to understand is when we are at home, we are the same person. When we go to office, again we are the same person. When we go to some professional event, again we are the same person. But the attributes that we display are different in these different forms. I may be my complete self at home. In my office, I may hide certain features and I might, exhibit only certain features. But when I go to a professional event, I might even hide even more features and expose only a part of my features. So it's not that I am different, I am the same, but how I would like to be interacted with, the way my wife or my children interact with me, that gives me the greatest pleasure. So similarly, when when the Lord wants us to interact with him, he wants us to forget that he is the Lord. In the book named as Gopal Champu, he has mentioned that I do not like people when they worship me in awe and reverence, meaning when we are surprised by the potency of the Lord, and when we worship Him as a great person, or the Lord, then there is a gap in some relationship. But when we forget that He is the Lord, and when we interact with Him in that manner, the way the gopis interacted with Him, the way Yashoda Mata Nand Maharaj interacted with Him, the way Yashoda Mata took a stick behind Him and ran after Him, yeah, the way the friends of Krishna like Subal or Sridham or various others, they used to climb on the shoulders of the Lord and play with Him. And that is the relationship the Lord likes to maintain with everybody. Why? Because that such a relationship, it generates, and generates the best form of love. There is absolutely no line being drawn over there. And this point about Mahajan confirming is also important, because we generally don't want to take any Tom, Dick, and Harry making a statement and we accepting it. We want an authority to make a statement. And Bhishma was proven as a Mahajan, as an authority on knowledge. And when he speaks, it makes more or kind of impact, bigger impact on the truth. We accept that truth. Now we'll do this particular verse, this last verse. Suta uvacha Krishna evam bhagavati manovag drushti vritti bhihi atmanyatma namaveshya antashvasah uparamat. Translation. Who's reading?
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus Bhishmadeva merged himself in the super soul, Lord Sri Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions, and thus he became silent and his breathing stopped. The stage attained by Bhishmadeva while quitting his material body is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because he merged himself into thinking of the Lord, and his mind into remembering his different activities. He chanted the glories of the Lord, and by his sight he began to see the Lord personally present before him. And thus all his activities become concentrated upon the Lord without deviation. This is the highest stage of perfection, and it is possible for everyone to attain this stage by practice of devotional service. The devotional service of the Lord consists of 9 principles of service activities, and they are hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet, worshipping, praying, executing the orders, fraternizing, and fully surrendering. Any one of them or all of them are equally competent to award the desired result, but they require to be practiced persistently under the guidance of an expert devotee of the Lord. The first item, hearing, is the most important item of all, and therefore, hearing of the Bhagavad Gita and later on Srimad Bhagavatam is essential for the serious candidate who wants to attain the stage of Bhishmadeva at the end. The unique situation at Bhishmadeva's time of death can be attained even though Lord Krishna may not be personally present. His words of the Bhagavad Gita or those of Srimad Bhagavatam are identical with the Lord. They are sound incarnations of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to be entitled to attain the stage of Sri Bhishmadeva, who was one of the 8 Vasus. Every man or animal must die at a certain stage of life, but one who dies like Bhishmadeva attains perfection, and one who dies forced by the laws of nature dies like an animal. That is the difference between a man and an animal. The human form of life is especially meant for dying like Bhishmadeva.
Jai. Thank you. So we'll see, Prabhupada's purports are so encompassing that if you read just the purport of 1 or 2 verses also, you will get the complete meaning. So there here also he is, giving a distinction between the death of a man and an animal. So why this is important? We understand that this human form of life is very important, and it is important because it has the potential to help us achieve the objective of human life, whereas that objective cannot be achieved in an animal form of life. Now, when you get this form of life after many births and you squander that, you let it go, you do not utilize it, then it is again back to square one and again back to start to again go through the cycle of birth and death, which is actually defeating the purpose. So to achieve that purpose, there are certain activities to be performed. Yeah. So people think that I will do lot of punya and that will help me go into swarga, but that is not Krishna recommends. Krishna says that sin might be more bad, but punya is not less bad. Punya is maybe in terms of punya may not give you troubles to your physical body like sinful activities do when we get the results, but punya is equally bad because it forces you to take a birth again. That is where that akarma comes into picture. Now, when you do akarma, then it is not necessary that you are developing love for the Lord. Akarma can be performed by karma yoga also, but love for the Lord doesn't exist. Now, in order to perform natural akarma, which is a kind of a byproduct of your voluntary action, then in order to do that, bhakti comes into picture, and that is where these 9 stages or processes of bhakti are mentioned here. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pad Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. Anybody knows who spoke this verse and to whom? Any guesses?
Through Prahlad.
And to whom? So the greatest devotee is speaking about this to the greatest demon.
To his father.
Yeah. So Hiranyakashipu wanted Prahlad to learn about himself and not Vishnu. So that's why he appointed Shanda and Amartya, 2 Brahmins, to teach him. And he had instructed these 2 guys that you should not teach him anything about Vishnu. You should only teach about me and my glories. So that way they were teaching him. And one day, Prahlad came to see his father. Our father called him, something like that. And Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad, what have you learned so far? Tell me, what have Shanda and Amartya taught you? So he says this verse, Shravanam, that is hearing, Kirtanam, chanting, Vishnu Smaranam, remembering, Pad Sevanam, serving the lotus feet, Archanam, worshipping, Vandanam, that is do namaskar, pray to him, Dasyam, execute the orders, Sakhyam, that is fraternizing, that means develop a relationship in a kind of a friendly relationship with the Lord, and Atma Nivedanam, meaning complete surrender from body, mind, and words. This is the best form of devotional service to Vishnu. That is what he speaks. That is what makes him wild, because Vishnu's name was uttered. And then he starts giving punishments after punishments to Prahlad. So the point we are trying to focus on is Prabhupada has taken a top-down approach to explain the verse. I am taking a bottom-up approach to say that to avoid the animal life, we have to behave like a man. To achieve the purpose of the life, we have to do a karma. To avoid a rebirth, we have to do a karma. A karma does not help you get bhakti, love. So for that, you need to perform bhakti. But bhakti is divided in these 9 processes, which is explained by Prahlad. And one of these, or not one, sorry, some of these were exhibited by the great Mahajan Bhishmadev, and because of which the Lord had come personally to be present in front of him and they give him the desired salvation. And that is what Prabhupada mentioned as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So this is not the end. It is a kind of in a continuation of the journey to the final destination. Hare Krishna. Thank you. We are almost 2 minutes above the time. Any other question? Anybody? I think the next class will be the last verse, last of this particular chapter. I think 49 verses are there. Yeah, correct. 49 verses are there. So next class will be taken by Radhapad Pankaj Prabhu. Is there any question we need to look at, or maybe you can reserve it for Radhapad Pankaj Prabhu? He is better in answering questions. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you.